Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are connected to the Call Out, the Law Show edition of it. This one and only voice you are listening to that is tantalizing your eardrums belongs to the one and only Katlego Mofokeng. I'm also known as Girl with the Nice Pants on the Instagram streets, and we are talking all things Africa Week, but also all things 30 years into democracy. What can we say about that? We have a lot to say, and we have somebody special in studio. I'm going to have him say hello to the masses, but we're not going to reveal his identity just yet. You will know exactly who he is. Trust and believe that just in time. Good evening.
Good evening to you and also to your listeners.
Well then, are you ready to get into this with me? We are about to have the best hour of your life. Me and my special guest are about to rock your world. This is the Law Show takeover of the Call Out. Stay connected. Mandisi Kyankisi with Mabaphile. And that is what we ask for, that we live to see the day in which the mission of Africa is realized, and that is independence. Now, on the 25th of May, we are going to be celebrating Africa Freedom Day or African Liberation Day, but now it is known as Africa Day, shortened. It is the annual commemoration of the foundation of the Organization of African Unity. The Organization of African Unity was created or founded on the 25th of May 1963. It is celebrated in various countries on the African continent as well as around the world. It is now known as the African Union and was replaced by the African Union on the 9th of June 2002. But we're still celebrating the foundation of the Organization of African Unity, and that is more than anything telling of the amount of work that they've done and the influence of the work that they have done. And the main aims, we were told, we're at Africa Week. So Africa Week is taking place from yesterday and will end on Friday with a very, very big bang. You're going to want to be there. But in any case, this is a bunch of seminars to speak and engage with the youth about issues relating to the youth and to our socio-economic landscape. So it opens our eyes to the various things that we are experiencing as the youth in our communities back home, or even here where we are temporarily migrated. And today's topic was the issues of borders of Africa. And one of the speakers is in studio with me today. Now, this man needs no introduction, but by right, since, we're here to connect, inform, and engage. In order to inform you, we need to tell you who he is. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm going to begin to read out your entire biography. Not too long, I'm not going to take too long because, wow, there are a lot. Now, this is a Nelson Mandela University alumnus, Dr. Pedro Mzileni. He's a senior lecturer in the Department of Sociology at the University of Zululand. He's a research associate in the Raymond Mhlaba Center for Governance and Leadership right here at Nelson Mandela University and writes columns for Al Jazeera English International. What they don't tell you is that he is a very distinguished member of the Nelson Mandela University community. He's done a lot. You should see the things he has published and the gravity of the work he has done here. And we can only imagine he's doing great things in Zululand right here. Good evening.
No, good evening to you and also to the rest of the crew on Madibaz Radio. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Being on this studio, brings back so many memories. This radio station was started during the time I was doing a junior degree here, and I was involved in the student movement. And one of our missions was to create an alternative medium of ideas,
an exchange with students.
Yeah, for all those who choose to be intellectuals in the university. We just thought they should have a platform to contest their different ideas outside of the classroom, because sometimes the classroom provides us with colonial knowledge that doesn't allow us to think as ourselves as black students, that doesn't allow us to express what we are going through, our experiences, our aspirations and all those things. But also we also wanted this radio station to be a platform for the future talent in broadcasting.
And look at what you have done.
In media studies, whatever, and you can see already the products that have come through the Madibaz Radio. So being here brings back so many memories and a sense of pride of the work that we've done.
When you walked in, Mr. Kama said, full circle moment. And it indeed was that, nothing short of that. Now I want us to dive right into our conversation. You had painted the picture. I wanted you to, first of all, elucidate, give us a contextual background of Africa Week, of the OAU, but more than anything, what necessitates the need to recalibrate our independence within the African diaspora.
Well, this university since July 2017 has renamed itself to be Nelson Mandela University, and it crafted its mission to be an African university that embraces the intellectual cultures of the global south, of the working class, of black people, of those whom in the modern world you'd consider as those who are pushed to the periphery, So it wanted to be an institution of the left, an institution for children of the slaves and the workers to come and express their ideas, their thoughts. So it was not a surprise, therefore, for the month of May to be remembered in this university and be commemorated as a month to revisit some of the ideas that were being surfaced in the continent to achieve its main mission, which is a free and an independent Africa. So I was invited by the International Office and the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy, called CANRAD, to come and be part of the panel on this question of a borderless Africa, using a Pan-African perspective to look at this question And that's what the panel today was basically about. And I really just sort of located the talk on the ideas of, intellectual stalwarts like Edward Wilmot Blinden,
Yes.
who centered Africanness within blackness,
Yes.
where he said that it is inconceivable to think of African nationalism and Pan-Africanism without a sense of racial pride, patriotism, and black consciousness, So to Edward Wilmot Blinden, being an African was not just a geographic phenomenon, but it was also a phenomenon of power, In other words, you can be black, but you could be located in the diaspora, like the West Indies or the United States, or even China. But when you are black,
you are African.
You are an African.
Yes.
In fact, being black means you are black everywhere you go in the world. You are always treated as a second-class citizen wherever you go. So the unity of African people and the sense of dignity and the respect that African people deserve, they will only have it when Africa becomes truly free and independent. So those are some of the ideas I tabled today.
That was perfect. I am so glad that you just set us back on that. And I'm glad, I love what you've just said. Africa will only be free when we actually gain independence. Now we're going to pay the bills, but after that we are going to paint a picture of what independence means in Africa, what it would look like, and what it would take in order for us to do that. We're sitting on the precipice of what many believe is an important time in our nation. We're about to vote very, very soon, and the youth need to be motivated to actually play their part and vote. However, we also need to see what kind of Africa we're aspiring to in order for us to realize who it is that we need to vote for. So we're going to pay the bills. We will see you on the other side of this.
Attention all music lovers. True FM's Sweet 16 birthday celebration in collaboration with The Soil Productions presents the Soil Reimagined Tour. Get ready to experience the electrifying sounds of The Soil like never before at their Reimagined Tour, coming to Boardwalk Hotel and Convention Center in Gqeberha on the 31st of May 2024. Join us for a night of soul-stirring melodies and unforgettable performances. Tickets are available starting from just 350 Rand at Web Tickets and Pick and Pay. So grab yours now before they sell out and let The Soil take you on a musical journey you won't soon forget.
You're listening to Madibaz Radio.
Opula Madibaz Radio.
Utheleritse Madibaz Radio.
Othetsheletsa Madibaz Radio.
Omametse Madibaz Radio.
Ek luister na Madibaz Radio.
Lalele I Madibaz Radio.
Ulalele Madibaz Radio. Nikho tshetsheletsa Madibaz Radio.
Ureditse Madibaz Radio.
You're listening to Madibaz Radio, opening up the waves for you to be heard.
In case it wasn't made abundantly clear, you're listening to Madibaz Radio, where we connect, inform, and absolutely engage. This amazing voice you are hearing belongs to the one and only Katlego Mofokeng, also known as Girl with the nice pants on the Instagram streets. Excuse me. Now, this is the Low Show takeover of the Call Out, and we are talking all things independence in Africa. Before the break, we had decided to talk about how the Africa Day and Africa Week seminar came to be, and now we're talking what it means to have an independent Africa. That is the mission. Am I correct in saying that, Doug?
Yes, you are spot on. Well, you have to firstly understand Africa at the moment as a colonial society.
Yes.
By colonial, meaning that it has been invaded. There has been the dispossession of Africans from their land.
Mm-hmm.
After being dispossessed, they were turned into cheap laborers. Cheap laborers, basically, who will be the ones sweeping the streets, cleaning the toilets, working in the mines, working in the farms.
Effectively second-class citizens.
Second-class citizens who are cheap laborers, in order for the European to own the means of production and accumulate wealth at the back of the African cheap laborers. So that's why in the continent we will talk of racial capitalism. In other words, those who own the means of production, those who are the core of the world, they are the white European race concentrated in Europe, where all wealth is taken in the core, whereas the periphery is the displaced African global south area, where there are cheap resources and cheap laborers that are basically exploited on a constant basis to make Europe rich. That condition of Africa was the condition of Africa 500 years ago.
Yes.
It was a condition of Africa 200 years ago. It is still the condition of Africa up until today.
Yes.
You know, the people who clean the streets today in Africa are still our very own black people. So that's why, therefore, the mission, therefore, for a free and an independent Africa remains an unfinished struggle.
Yes, you say an unfinished struggle, especially considering the fact that now we are post-1994, post-liberation. Most say we are standing at, within 30 years into democracy. And you explain that while we may be standing in 30 years of democracy, we are still second-class citizens wherever we go, even within our own countries, even on our own land. And that is basically because of the fact that we do not own said land. We have lost our identity, have no knowledge of our history. So how can we reclaim what is rightfully ours? How do we gain independence?
Well, obtaining independence requires struggles, popular, revolutionary, grassroots struggles that will take place in communities, that will take place in the terrain of knowledge, that will also take place even in the terrain of the media, So all these sites of struggles I've mentioned, that's where revolutionary action needs to be taken in order for us as Africans to finally own our land, our resources, and in that way we'll also be able to restore our own dignity in the form of our cultures, our languages, our knowledges, and our histories. Philosophers like Vladimir Lenin from the Russian Revolution, for an example, he quickly identified that the colonial capitalist project also carries imperialism. In other words, when European colonizers come and invade your land and they enslave you, they do not only take your material resources, but they also kill your culture, they kill your language, they kill your education system, and they replace it with theirs. That is why, therefore, today you'd find that a black young person, when they come to Nelson Mandela University and they stay here for 4 years, after staying here for 4 years, when they go back to their community, you'd find that they are unable to relate to their community anymore, because the colonial education that they have received has taught them that they are now better black people than those they've left behind. So colonialism has this technique to create the illusion on those it has enslaved, that by virtue of tasting the seduction of colonial systems, you immediately start to think you are a better black, or you are no longer part of the problems of black people. So when you look at the post-94 template we've used, since 94, our independence in South Africa basically was only about changing the legal the legal framework of society, in the sense that, okay, if you are a woman, you can have access to education, you can have access to basic services. Basically, it was just this rollout of basic human rights, those basic political human rights. But when you look at the structure of society, the economy, the power relations, the social relations, the institutional power of the society, that area still remained the way it was during apartheid. So in other words, South Africa is not an independent democratic society. Rather, South Africa is a colonial society, because all that we have done so far was to replace white faces in colonial institutions with black faces.
And many would term that neocolonialism. And this is what happens when oftentimes leaders there are structures that are put in place by the colonial powers that be. And once they have been eradicated, so to speak, the structures still remain. And the people that remain in those structures are black people. And now that means then the structure of whatever authoritarianism was previously there is still there. It just is occupied by a different subset of people. So that authoritarianism has taken on a different color, but it is still the same monster.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, the simple example is Marikana.
Yes.
I like to use Marikana as a case study to my students to explain neocolonialism to them.
Yes.
Here is a mine that has platinum, the most precious metal worth billions of US dollars in the world markets.
Yes.
But those profits are not going to the people of Marikana. They are not going to the people
in Rustenburg,
to Rustenburg, to communities in Rustenburg. You're correct, So the people who stay in South Africa are not benefiting from that platinum. The profits of the platinum are going to British white colonial capital. Yet, when black workers protested for a living wage, not even a protest to own the mine or for shares, but they were just protesting for a living wage.
Yeah.
The black government used live bullets to kill those black workers in defense of white British capital. So what you saw there, it's when the white system puts in black faces in defense of colonial interests.
Yes.
So the Marikana example shows us that if you are a black person who is willing to be used to advance the colonial project, white people don't mind using you, And there are many black people who cooperate with colonial interests to advance whiteness and anti-black racism, which essentially is what happened in Marikana. So people who will often sit and celebrate 30 years of democracy, sometimes I struggle with understanding how do they rationalize Marikana in everyday life. Like, what does their conscience tell them when they celebrate the status quo, and yet there is a situation of Marikana that happened right in front of their eyes. I mean, there are many Marikanas that happen every week in South Africa. The collapse of the building in George is another example of what I'm referring to. Cheap laborers dying.
The fires that broke out last year in Johannesburg.
Exactly. That fire in the CPD that killed 77 black people within hours, So it's only black people who die in such huge numbers as cheap laborers in Africa.
And no one bats an eyelid.
No one is held accountable. The world does not stop. It continues as if nothing happened. And all of this is happening because we are sitting in a modernity that advances the very same colonial white interests it was driving for centuries ago. So until we completely dismantle the current modern world we find ourselves in, we will continuously perpetuate this order that I am referring to.
Yes, it takes the form of many things. Like you said, the identities, our histories, the way we know ourselves, the way we relate in society. Going back home, you no longer relate to said people from home because you've received this higher education, and it tells you that by virtue of you having a degree as opposed to maybe a diploma or a higher certificate, that you are better. So it's a reinforcement of this idea of hierarchy. And oftentimes it actually is very, very worrying. And it calls into question our ideals as a people, that we are able to lose our ideals in such a short space of time speaks to the gravity and the concentration of the information that we receive from these institutions and these structures.
Well, you're spot on. The universities we have, they are not completely decolonized at all. The curriculum in the classroom is still very much Eurocentric. The people behind this curriculum are still advancing Eurocentric theories. Even the method of learning, the method of assessment, the method of thinking, you are still being forced to memorize European authors for a specific test that you are writing on a specific day. And after that test, you've completely forgotten what you were memorizing, you know. Yet, the knowledge we need is the one that will provide intensive reading to the student and intensive reflective writing about the conditions of their communities, the conditions of their land, and for them to truly express what they have and what they think, you know. The mere fact that a person is 18 years old and they come to a university, there should be a platform created for them to express what they have experienced for all those years that they've lived up to that point, you know, because they've seen violence, they've seen racism, they've seen poverty with their own eyes. So when they come to the university must be a space for those experiences not to die,
for them to be unpacked.
But they must be unpacked, they must be enlarged, they must be flourished further for them to enlarge their curiosity and their knowledge base. So African-centered knowledge would be the one that will, foreground our students into the value systems of our people, you know, so that they learn about who they are, they learn about what their communities need, and they also get to learn what the world needs at the moment in order for it to be a better world. That is the type of an education system for me that I am striving towards. It's what I've committed myself to do, and that is what we're trying to do where I am now at the University of Zululand, where we have framed ourselves as a node for African thought. In my classes, we go straight for African literature, you know, African history, African philosophies. That's what I am inculcating in my students, because I want to produce working class black intellectuals amongst them
who understand,
who understand their communities, but who are also grounded in a proper value system, so that they can not only be educated, but they can also be good human beings.
That's absolutely beautiful. You just said it perfectly. We are going to take a break and listen to some music. We will be back on the other side of this, and we are still talking all things Pan-Africanism, but also we're going to be looking at how best now to relate the information that we receive in spaces such as this, taking it back to our communities and how we can contribute to them. It is very easy, I'll say this before we close this off, it's very easy within the humanities department, I'm realizing, to be able to express this type of thought, to be able to go through that information and question it as much as possible. Within faculties such as the law faculty, that isn't as much. We're not really testing the boundaries of things. We're teaching you the laws as they are. You're not questioning them. You are learning them, so you're able to apply them. And then we have to look at how we need to interpret them. And therein is the only thing that can deviate from it. Interpretation of law is how best then we can, have an African thought, but how we learn the law itself is the law is rigid. This is what it is. You cannot question it. This is what it is. It was put in place for a reason.
Well, that's a very good assessment, and I totally agree with you, especially with the law faculty of this university. When I left, the decolonial turn was still far from being realized in the law faculty. In fact, if you have decolonial or black people who come in as lecturers in the law faculty, they will be pushed to the very subjects that have nothing to do with the core program of what you are learning. I think students need not to be taught or trained about the law, but they need to be taught and be trained about the aspirations of justice,
Yes.
And the question of justice in South Africa is the question of who is human, What does being human mean? Because at the moment, to be human is to be white. To be human is to come from the global north. To be human is to be a man, Those who are black, those who are women, those who are poor, those who come from the periphery of the world, the global south, they are treated as subhumans. They are treated as animals. And you see that reflection in how the curriculum of the law is framed, So until we have a legal framework driven by justice that prioritizes the philosophies and the interpretations of life and society for those who come from the bracket of the enslaved, then we are still far from decolonizing the law curriculum, unless we come closer to that question of who is human.
Yes. Who is human? To know that is to know peace. That being said, we're going to be playing you Peace by Manny Wells.
This feels like joy that I don't want, 'cause every touch makes me want more. Can't go single day without using, can't go single day without looking. Now my heart's so glued and I'm losing sight of everything around me. Can't go single day without using, can't go single day without looking. Going to withdraw. Peace and you. I wanna give you the peace and forever. Peace and you. I wanna give you the peace and forever. Peace and.
What an unfortunate situation. I'm tired of doing things for confirmation. I need to save my time and energy. I don't need to be yours, you don't need to be mine. What do you want from me? You're too bad for a medicine. I can't hide when you're calling me. I can't think when you're draining me. What do you want from me? I'm so tired of falling in. I need peace from the enemy. Give me time for my sanity.
Can't go single day without using, can't go single day without looking. Now my heart's so glued and I'm losing side of everything around me. Can't go a single day without using. Can't go a single day without looking. Going to withdraw.
Peace by Manuels and Thames. You are still tuned into the Law Show takeover of The Call Out with myself, Katlego Mofokeng, and I am here in studio with Dr. Pedro Mzileni. He is giving us all things Pan-Africanism, and the time is 20 minutes to 7. We've got 20 minutes left of this, and we are still going to stun you with 20 minutes of the best conversation you'll ever have. Stay connected. Now, we are looking at what freedom means, what independence means to Africans and to those, let us say it abruptly or put it as rough as possible, black people who are second-class citizens in the world, in a global setting. And now we have been given the opportunity to elect a government that is going to lead us for the next couple of years. What does that mean to us? How do we concentrate these ideals in making a choice actively for whoever is going to lead us?
Yeah, I think regular elections are very important instruments that are available in the hands of the youth that they should utilize in order to shape the future that they want to inherit. Because state power is so important, especially for those who were colonized, which is black people, because it is only through the seizing of state power where you're able to change society fundamentally, you know. So if you want to rearrange the agenda of knowledge, rearrange the agenda of the economy, rearrange the agenda of the dominant value systems and cultures that are out there in society, then you need to occupy state power according to the power relations of your class and your race, and then you are able then to roll out the type of a society that you want to see. So I'm not one of those people who say, you know, stay at home, don't vote. No, I overwhelmingly encourage young people to go into voting, because voting is a site of struggle. It's a terrain of power that young people must go in and contest in order to shape the future that they want to see. Because also through voting, what is gonna happen thereafter is that the old ideas that have not worked are automatically gonna be kicked out into the graveyard, you know. And the ideas that will live are those that truly express the conditions and the frustrations of black people. And at the moment, you can see what black people are complaining about. You know, black people are saying, look, thank you for the depths, thank you for the pavements, it's okay, but we remain second-class citizens. We are still subhuman, without dignity, without land. We are South Africans with ID numbers, but we own absolutely nothing on this land. So it's time now to go in and actually fashion out ideas that are going to live and take us to the destiny that we want, not old ideas that we can all clearly see that they are heading to the graveyard.
We're learning that freedom is indeed not free, and also we're seeing that we need our reflections, the reflections of our inherent values in Parliament, in places with power where decisions are made on our behalf. We need people who we can leave responsible that can actually reflect what it is that we want inherently. Now, how can we do that within the framework of institutions such as the university? We know that we vote for the SRC, and they too are in positions of power to be able to speak on our behalves with regards to any of the social inadequacies that we face. Student hunger, accommodation issues, even funding issues can be spoken through by structures such as the SRC. How can students use that power within this?
Well, structures like the SRC at the moment, I think they are undergoing a crisis. Precisely because the university environment is increasingly getting privatized. There's a deliberate attempt to kill student activism. You also see it in the classroom. There's a deliberate effort to kill student creativity, student curiosity, and the ability of students to question the status quo, So it's like the enemy is fighting back, to sort of, drive the youth into a point of ignorance, So student politics at the moment is undergoing what I call ideas that are vulnerable to social control,
Yes.
Because now it's as if a template is being drawn that to be a student activist, this is a particular language you must speak. These are the national political interests you must align yourself with.
The rhetoric to use.
This is the rhetoric to use. In fact, student leadership is a vehicle for you to have a safe landing after you graduate.
Yes.
The language is no longer about free education, about the black decolonial education option that we want. The elimination of basically the depatriarchization of the university, the depatriarchization of the curriculum, the depatriarchization and the deracialization and the decommodification of this animal called higher education. In other words, the momentum of the Fees Must Fall movement and the alliances it created with workers in the university is a momentum that is dying out, And there's now a sort of a return back to liberal politics that do not change the university structurally, institutionally, and fundamentally, And that is deliberate, because student leaders and SRCs now are being locked up in endless meetings about the failures of NSFAS,
Bureaucratic red tape.
It's a bureaucratic red tape. So being an SRC member now means you're constantly being asked about, food allowances for 5 months during your term. So if you are constantly addressing, what will students eat, where will they sleep, what will they wear, where will their transport come from, you will never get the chance to get to the actual structural fundamental issues of the sector that you are supposed to attend to when you are a student leader. And this is, again, like I said before, this is done deliberately. State failures, which are financed by monopoly capital in South Africa, the collusion basically of white international capitalism with the political elite, and the state failures that collusion produces, it generates a precarious higher education environment where student leaders are unable to mobilize students on core fundamental issues of the unfinished struggle of free education. Instead, they are being reduced now to talk about these minor issues that keep them in constant conflict with their own constituency that they're supposed to mobilize. So what I could say, therefore, is there is a strong need to raise the consciousness of our students.
Yes.
Discussions such as this one we had today are conversations that should be constant in the student political environment. Political education should be the everyday language in that space, and students should always remember that they are a generation of young people. This is their own struggle, this is their own time, and they need to carry forward this unfinished struggle of a decolonized free education.
Curiosity is the cure to it. I think it's very important for us to realize that we do need to be curious. We need to question our society in general and how things stand. But also, more than anything, we need to be socially aware. And social awareness is very hard when, yes, indeed, we're dealing with small issues relating to, and they're not small. I think what's crazy is, by right, they're meant to be issues that aren't as big as they are. But instead, when you are hungry and you are without accommodation, you have to deal with those issues immediately and cannot deal with any others. And that does slow down the SRC. It slows everybody down from being able to question the structures and the powers that be. Now we're going to pay the bills, and we will be back. We'll be closing out the show. We're 9 minutes out from the hour 7, and you are still tuned in. You are still connected to the Law Show's takeover of the Call Out.
Mental health is just as important as physical health. It affects how we think, feel, and behave. It is important to find healthy ways to deal and cope with these feelings. Some of the healthy ways of coping can include practicing mindfulness, staying connected with loved ones, and taking breaks from social media. Remember, taking care of your mental health is important. If you or someone you know needs help, don't hesitate to reach out to Zeni Student Wellness.
Changing the world one voice at a time.
Yeah, what up, man? Super nice to see you right now. You're tuned in to Madibaz Radio. Don't change that down.
You're listening to Madibaz Radio, opening up the waves for you to be heard.
bengathi ngiyakuzange kwaphela lutho kodwa uNkulunkulu nami
53 minutes past the hour 6. That means we're 7 minutes out from the hour of 7. You are connected to the call out right here on Madibaz Radio, where we connect, inform, and absolutely engage. I am still Katlego Mofokeng, also known as Girl with the Nice Pants on the Instagram streets, and I am in studio with the one and only Dr. Pedro Mzileni. Now, we've been speaking this entire time about all things Pan-Africanism, how best to empower yourself by realizing the dream that is African independence. Now, we are learning about how best also to gain independence within structures such as the university. And we're closing out. Now, you have said quite a lot to us about African independence, more than anything. What does freedom mean to you, and what are your parting words for the masses out there tuned in?
Two things. I would say, one, black people must continue to love each other. You, as the Madibaz Radio crew, you've got to love each other. You've got to love what you do, because knowledge is priceless. You know, you've got to continue driving this platform as a space for radical, decolonial, and informative ideas. The way you framed the show, the way you've prepared for this show since the afternoon today, basically everything that you do, you must never think that it is in vain. It's a priceless activity of knowledge production that only has fruits that you will see in the long term. You know, you will get to see the contributions you've made to black people, to your black peers, many years down the line, when you begin to watch what they do, how they think, and they will remember and honor you for the work that you've done. So at all times, in the pursuit of knowledge, let's give our total commitment towards it, to uplift black people, to uplift our communities without expecting anything in return. Let's just tell ourselves that this is a duty we are here to serve. The people who will congratulate us and reward us are the people who are watching us in the spiritual world, which are our ancestors, you know. So I always say this to my students, that you must always speak your mind. I always speak my mind. The freedom to think is the most precious right you could ever have. Yes. Speak your mind, and your ancestors will make sure that they protect you. So that would be my first message. And then maybe the last one, the colonial agenda was basically to divide us and also to conquer us, you know. We must constantly reject these artificial differences amongst each other. We must always seek to unite and become one people, and that is how the continent will ultimately be free and independent in our lifetime.
Thank you so very much. It was more than an honor to have you. And I think with what you said, doing the work and seeing it pay off in the long run is a testament to you, really, and your work. I've seen many a paper that you've written from 2017, 2018, and a lot of the things that I think about in general are things that are put out in paper and absolutely put out, articulated so well that I think to myself, there really isn't a need, for me to write this type of paper because it's out there. And I'm able now to see that there are others who are saying it. There are other authors who are saying this. And I have access to a network of that information. So the body of information that you have provided us with your writing is nothing short of amazing. And it's also not in vain, because people like me are coming up and we're seeing that what we think is out there, and there are like-minded people, and we have a community of said people, and they've given us the resources to carry on and to push that. So thank you so much for your contribution.
No, lovely. Thank you so much for this opportunity as well, and for such a gracious honor. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and all the best to you, your career, your future endeavors, and everything you do for our students. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. This has been the Law Show takeover of the Call Out. Now it's back to regular scheduled programming from tomorrow onwards, but do not be afraid you are going to live your best life. We still have you right here on Madibaz Radio, where we connect, inform, and absolutely engage. You can catch me on Instagram as Girl with the Nice Pants, in case it was never evident. But we will see you tomorrow. Night shift follows.